Everyone, I think we're live currently. We're just gonna wait for a few minutes to begin. So Leslie, I'm gonna be, just making a short, brief introduction in Serbian for all of the people that came and didn't expect us talking in English.
No problem.
Zdravo svima, drago mi je da ste tu, drago mi je što smo se svi okupili u ovako velikom broju, ovo zvuči kao da smo došli na svadbu, ali nismo, tu smo na novom HR Chit Chatu. Danas imamo jako interesantne i jako bitne teme koje ćemo da obrađujemo, tako da vam savjetujem da spremite kaficu. Ovo je totalno jedan informalan razgovor gde u stvari pokrivamo bitne teme na normalan svakodnevan način. So, transferring to English now, I just said, it's great to have all of them on board and to see people coming in. And I wanted to say in Serbian that this sounds like an introduction to a wedding, we're gathered. So many of us have gathered here, So I have the opportunity to welcome Leslie. For those of you who haven't followed us on HR Week 2021, and do not know the background behind Leslie and I want to, provide a bit of information on this. So I'm a City College alumni, and I finished my studies last year, and am now a Bachelor of Finance and Accounting. And in that period of time of my education, I had the opportunity to meet the one and only Leslie. And when I thought about, what could my contribution be when it comes to HR and the HR community and HR Week as a conference itself, I thought about what a better opportunity than to welcome someone who has extensive experience and expertise when it comes to HR. So Leslie, thank you so much for joining me once again on the HR Chit Chat session.
Thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. And I'm glad that you've seen the light getting away from that finance side and onto the HR side of things as well. So I'm just kidding. The finance people always kill me when I say that. But, anyhow.
No, listen, whenever someone asks me, like, what's your background? Like, did you study psychology? Because that's the usual track people take when going into HR. And when I say, like, I wanted to go to the New York Stock Exchange, like I was ready to go on Wall Street, do all the investment stuff and be, truly like a finance person. Everyone started laughing, like, how are you in HR now? But I think having that perspective, having the business side of things as your bachelor studies, and then, developing yourself in the HR sphere is a very important thing. And really...
Absolutely agree. It's one of the things, I'm fortunate because I get to deal with a lot of people from the tops of organizations to the lower levels of organizations. And one of the things that is critical from an HR perspective is being able to understand the business. It's great to do the good HR things that we do, but at the same time, you've got to be able to speak to the programmers. You've got to be able to work with the production people. You've got to be able to understand what the finance people are talking about, even though nobody really understands what they're talking about. But you've still got to be able to speak parts of their language, and I think it's absolutely critical when we have people in the H suite that can speak the language of business. So absolutely, it's always stronger for the organization when that happens.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing about this, because this is like a constant topic that goes around the HR community. Like, what can we do in order for us to improve our knowledge of the business and the business side of things? But also, we usually come up to a, let's say, perception that no one understands HR and, like, what goes around behind the scenes and what the activities and obligations are of the HR professionals within certain companies. And nowadays, that's not only a hot topic, it's a very important aspect that we need to cover in order for the HR function to improve and to constantly grow. And in regards to this topic, let's say, I want to tell you or ask you, actually, what do you think is, let's say, the next steps in our path of avoiding the potential crisis of quiet quitting? The concept, everything that goes behind it. And I think quiet quitting honestly took over the concept of Great Resignation. That was like, oh, Jesus, we're all scared of it. but now no one saw this coming. So what can we do?
Yeah, well, actually, it's interesting. We talk about the Great Resignation. And of course, this is having a big impact on organizations, but it's also the big hiring. When people resign, they also go somewhere. So there's a big hiring process occurring at the same time. And oddly enough, that's sort of been left off the agenda at the moment. So it's a matter of balancing, I think, the two. Let me, as we go forward, let me just take a step back, because I think it's really, you mentioned a couple of good points earlier, which is in relation to HR needing to know the business. And quite honestly, there were, I'm gonna say were now, prior to COVID, a lot of employees that I work with, research with, and so on, that said, HR just, I don't know what the hell they do. Okay. COVID comes along, and then everybody turned towards HR for solutions. And suddenly everybody was saying, ooh, I'm important all of a sudden. These people need information from me. So I think there's an amazing opportunity now, because HR got put onto the radar screen because of the tragedy of COVID and the pandemic, to now leverage that into the things that it's doing. So when we talk about the Great Resignation, when we talk about the great hiring that's coming, or if you will, the shift between the two, I think it's an amazing opportunity for HR to reposition itself inside organizations. Those of us who are in HR, we have a pretty good idea of what we're doing. Okay. And, we're able to strategically look at things and so on, but it's a matter of trying to convince others of the value that we bring, the value proposition, if you will. A number of years ago, there was a movement towards cost-centered human resource management, trying to look at it as a cost center or a profit center even. I've worked with a couple of organizations in creating profit-centered driven human resource systems. With everything that's happening in the movements and so on, we've now become psychologists, psychiatrists. We've had to understand the financial side of things as we've moved people into the home. Now we talk about hybrid working systems, and everybody says, how are we going to manage these things? And they turn to HR for answers, which puts us in a position to be able to reconfigure that discussion with the different departments inside our organizations, to really show that we can be strategic, value add as we go forward. Now, as we're also looking at the Great Resignation, the question as well is from a strategic recruitment and selection point of view. And I don't like to say this, but I will say it. There are people inside our organizations that we wish would resign. Okay, let's just, let's put that on the table. There are people that, they're there, but we're not exactly sure if they add value and so on. What we want to do is we need to rethink to who are the key people we want to hold on to, and strategically work with those people. And then as others are leaving and we're bringing in other people, how can we change the dynamics with those new recruitments? It's not just a matter, the old HR was, do we have a body to cover it? Do we have somebody who can cover it? As opposed to who's the most strategically relevant person for that position. Whether it's moving towards contract workers, through this resignation, we've also seen organizations saying, well, actually, do I need to fill that position? Could I put it onto some type of outsourcing type of contract with people? The independent contractors, independent consultants, call them whatever you want. So it's really an amazing opportunity for HR going forward. And I don't like the term post-COVID, because in my view, we're still there. There's still that worry inside the organizations that we're not out of it. So I think the question is, we've still got those opportunities to reposition, to rethink as we go forward into whatever this brave new world is that we're going into.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing. When people, I like that we actually, focused on the business side of things and the strategic HR side rather than, the perception of HR that we have in the Balkan region. And I think there's stigma behind HR still, which is a very bad thing in my opinion.
Absolutely.
But when I had an open discussion with my grandma, she doesn't understand what goes around in HR, when she has limited knowledge. And unfortunately, when I was trying to explain certain aspects of HR to her, told her, imagine the situation that's happening currently in the European airports. That's like the aspect of HR that we don't, want to understand or want to say that's us, honestly, because when it comes to HR, we usually have the perception no one understands us. But when it comes to crisis, we must act accordingly, and we must, align our strategies with the business in order to have certain success. So thank you for providing your opinion on all of this. And honestly, you mentioned hybrid work mode, and you mentioned some of the aspects, that post-COVID, as we like to call it, world carries. But I wanted to ask you, there's a trend going on in Serbia specifically, but I think the Balkan region currently is going through the same thing. And that's the question of how can we get our employees to go back to the office? What can we do, in order for them to come back? Because usually companies now say, okay, we have a hybrid working mode. That's a benefit. Is it a benefit? Is it a benefit to, offer, let's say, a working schedule from home and from the office? And what can we do in order to not scare the people off when proceeding to go back to the office?
Yeah, that's a real tough one, because I go back to May 8th, 2020, just the days before COVID, the real wave came through. And I was working and talking with some companies, and I said, have you considered, all the technologies and the telework and telecommuting, the old terminology that we used to use? And they said, come on, I can't do that. I don't trust my employees. They're going to go home. They're going to go sit on their butts, and nothing will get done. And then, by May 15th, 80% of our workers were being thrown into their homes, right? Go home, go work, and so on. And productivity went up. Okay. And for some people, they said, I have found my holy grail. I am at home. I'm getting work done. I don't, with all due respect to some of the cities in our region, I don't have to put up with the bullshit of traffic going to and from work. I can get up. I can be prepared. I can get things done. I feel more productive. And I like where I am. There's the other part of the system that said, oh, geez. And of course, the farther along the pandemic went, the more this became stronger, which is, I cannot be in this house anymore. I cannot be in this room. I can't sit at my dining room table and have my dog jumping on me, and my significant other asking me questions, and the doorbell ringing, and it's chaotic. And then there's then there's this movement towards hybrid. Here's the bottom line. There are some people that only want hybrid now. There are some people that only want to be at a face-to-face interactive office. And there are others that say, I only want to be wherever I want to be to get my work done. So the question then is, well, how are organizations going to approach this? Because if they go any of these three directions, they are potentially alienating good workers or strategic workers for themselves. So if I say only face-to-face, okay, the hybrids and the home workers say, not for me. If I go hybrid, the pure face-to-faces don't like it, and the pure working at homes don't like it. So organizations really have to take a step back, I think, and say, what type of environment, what type of culture do we want to create inside our organization? Do we have to consider the types of workers we're looking to recruit? For example, there are a lot of younger people. Let's just call them Generation Z, who, or even the millennials in here who say, this is what I want. Okay. And as we continue to go forward, we have to be flexible. Now, flexibility comes with a cost, which is I don't get economies of scale. And this is where the finance people go, yes, he's finally talking something that makes sense. There are numbers involved here. I miss economies of scale. Okay. I lose potential forms of communication. I have to find a new way of operating. And this is where, at least in my view, this is where HR can add value. They have to be able to say, here are the costs, here are the benefits, here's the SWOT analysis, here is the profit-centered statement that comes along with the decisions that we're going to make. But in order to do that, we have to understand the business. I cannot simply say, you know what, we have to go hybrid. We have to give everybody the opportunity for hybrid, because there may be certain parts of the organization that say that will fail for this and this reasons. But if I know that in those parts of the organization it doesn't work, then I have to say, okay, here we will do this, here we will do that, and so on, and really reposition the workforce for this, now I can use the term, post-COVID scenario. I was working, doing some work with AstraZeneca, one of the AstraZeneca offices in the region, and they were looking to create the post-pandemic organizational system. And they were going, so which was going to create organizational change for them. And the HR people needed to be able to speak the language of change. They needed to understand the pros and cons, the SWOT that went along with the decisions that we're trying to make. And it was a matter of trying to facilitate some of those discussions. And believe me, there were people who dug their heels in and said, no, this is the way we do it. This is the way it has to be done. But then you have to say to yourself, well, if we do that, what are the consequences? You know, one of the phrases that I like to use is, every solution creates another problem. There's never the perfect solution. But when you look at the answer or the solution, you have to ask yourself, is that worse than the problem we solved? If the next problem is worse than the problem we solved, we can't do it. But there's never going to be the perfect solution. And people are individuals that are looking for different things. Now that we opened Pandora's box and gave everybody a taste of home and being able to be a productive and effective from home, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Everybody has an opinion now. The question is, and this is why we've seen the Great Resignation, or part of this. Yes, people were stuck inside their organizations, and they didn't want to leave. Even though they might have wanted to leave, they didn't leave because they were worried. How long will the pandemic last? What would it be like if I went to a new company? I wouldn't be able to onboard myself, and so on. Now that we're past that point, people are saying, great, now let me look at my options. Now that I know what it's like, and I know what face-to-face is, I know what online is, I know what hybrid is, let me find the best organizational work environment, the best organizational culture that fits me. And this is where the mental health aspect of it comes in, makes me comfortable. You know, the COVID really had so many devastating impacts on the way that people's mental health, their psychology. Now people are much more concerned about themselves and understanding that work is a means to an end, absolutely. But let me find the best system that works for myself. So I guess that's sort of a long-winded answer. That's what us academics do. We just talk and talk and talk of trying to address that very simple question.
No, absolutely. And thank you for providing a very extensive answer on this, because you mentioned and touched upon a very few important aspects that I also want to discuss. And that's, what you mentioned, I think post-COVID and also during COVID, to be honest, we saw a trend that I think people were not anticipating. And that's how easy it is to resign and how easy it is to get a new job. that suits you, and that provides you with the well-being, both mental well-being and physical well-being that you desire. And when it comes to the generation that I currently, am a part of, so 22 plus 2 minus 2 years, let's say, I saw a very big trend of my colleagues going into startup companies or younger companies that offer flexible working mode and that allow you to work from wherever and whenever you want. So unless you don't provide the results that we need, unless that happens, everything else is okay. You can go wherever, you can do whatever. So when it comes to that, do you think people should now rethink benefits and rethink how they approach employee experience as a whole?
I think they very much have to start rethinking that, and a lot of it parts of this start with employer branding. One of the topics that's it's always a hot one in HR week. I think we really have to start reevaluating what people are looking for. I've always been a big proponent of cafeteria style benefits. I don't think there's a one size fits all. Okay, today I feel like this, tomorrow I feel like that. But basically to have a buffet of different benefits that can be offered that are tailored to the individual. So you get to create your own quote unquote benefit package. Now, again, the finance people are jumping up and down. They're saying, yeah, but there are no economies of scale. Okay, yeah. Well, you know what? There are no economies of scale. But if I look at the cost benefit aspect of things, the costs of not being able to provide certain types of benefits or a portfolio that match along with the individual's needs, there's a greater chance that that person will be with me until they find what they're looking for. Okay. Now, again, I'm not a big proponent as well of jobs for life. Okay. Let me be clear here. They're especially the younger generation, they're looking at what is my learning opportunity inside this organization. And as soon as my learning starts to top off, they're saying, well, what's my next learning opportunity? If they don't get it, they leave. And then as an HR manager, I come along and say, but look at all the benefits I'm giving at you. Look, I'm giving you, industry level salary, above industry level salary. I've given you everything you could possibly want. Yeah, but I don't feel like I'm learning as much as I wanted to. And they leave. So it's there's no one size fits all. We have to be continually looking at and reevaluating our employees. And, maybe this is where we have to start rethinking things like performance evaluations and all these other things, because, we're when it comes to those types of assessments, we're still decades behind where the marketplace is. And it's a matter of truly that relationship. I've always been a big proponent of the relationship between one's immediate manager and themselves. It's that linking point that's absolutely critical. And the more my manager understands me, the more he or she I feel empathy. I feel the ability to be transparent with my communication, and we can create the system together. That's the strongest bond. The benefits, the all those other things, if we want to use the academic terms, those are hygiene factors. They have to be there. If they're not there, everything else becomes irrelevant. But if they're there, then we look at what we can level up on in terms of that relationship with the employees. And I think that's where get those hygiene factors in place. Okay. People are saying, okay, Maslow's lower needs, call them whatever you want. Okay. And then start to build those higher order needs, those motivation factors. Those are those critical elements. That's where that supportive manager, that's where HR can really play a strong role in terms of keeping the system going and moving forward.
Amazing. Thank you very much. And I like that you mentioned Maslow as well, because last week when we had the start of the HR, one of the speakers actually talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and people were like, oh God, wait, we forgot about that. And that's like the tricky thing that happens in our minds is like, we cannot go to the highest level if we don't go continuously. And reach each level in order to get to the top.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned learning, and I like learning, and I like the topic of learning, and I think we don't talk about it enough. So even though that's a very big aspect, and I think each of us nowadays, when they see they don't have enough learning opportunities within a certain firm or an organization, they're gonna go and change their job. They're gonna change their environment, strive towards attaining new knowledge. But when it comes to learning and development as a part of HR function, what do you think people should focus on right now? Is it like, because generally we have a budgeting plan and everything else in the beginning of the year where we focus on, let's do sales skills or presentation skills or leadership skills, the basic things. But I don't think we've yet reached the revolution in the learning and development function. So I want to hear your input on this, especially since you have an academic perspective on all of the things that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think learning and development is something we also need to rethink, and I absolutely agree. The problem with learning and development, or training and development, call it whatever we want, is we try to take a magic wand and say, if we give them the sales training, everything will be fine. Okay. And it's a one-off thing. We go in, we go in for 3 days, and, we do the training and development. Everybody goes rah, rah, rah. And then they go back to the office place and it gets blown out. It gets blown away. There are a lot of online tools now. Okay, you look at the Udemys of the world and so on, and I'm seeing people on their CVs these days with, I did this from Udemy, I did this from Coursera, and so on and so on. All great things, which and if you look at the popularity of these types of tools, it says there's a learning and training gap somewhere. People are hungry, they're thirsty for information. And if they're not learning in the workplace, they're going elsewhere to learn about it. It not necessarily related to their jobs, but related to stimulating the brain cells. Okay. I've worked with a couple of companies in our region very recently. One, a major Fortune 500 company, and the other, a very large national company, where we started putting together a training program that was tailored directly to the needs of the organization, as opposed to, okay, you want something on training? No problem. Let me take it off the shelf, and I will. I can do this for you. Okay. And I was working directly with the HR managers on it, and so it was a matter of understanding what they wanted, but as well understanding how that best fit into the strategic aspects of the company, the long-term goals of the company, and so on. So I think there needs to be that semi-customization of things. Now, why do I say semi-customization and not full customization? Because as soon as you start full customization, first of all, the price goes through the roof. And secondly, there's nobody who can fully customize a training project simply because they don't know enough about your company. So I can't go. The only people who can truly customize it would be the people inside the organization, but then they don't have necessarily the knowledge base to be able to do it. So there are two aspects to this. I think we've got to start working much more towards a semi-customized program that is some face-to-face interaction, but also one-on-one. Let me tell you about one program that we're currently working with a company in the region, where one of the areas that I do is a lot in the area of change management. Besides human resource management, I do a lot in the area of change management. And what we're doing is, for one day, we're bringing everybody face-to-face to talk about change management, the principles, doing the traditional things, the work groups, breaking them into groups, and so on. And then we're giving them a small assignment afterwards, which is to look inside the organization. Could be their work group, it could be within a department, it could be at the organizational level, and come up with a change that they would like to make. So now each individual will have something very specific that they want. And then I'm going to work with that person in an online environment to structure the change. and then they're going to put it down and create a business case for it. So it's, here's the general side, but here's the specificity. So it becomes directly relevant to the organization. The CEO and the HR director were ecstatic. They said, great, when we do this, we want you to choose the best 4 or 5 ideas and present them to the people at the top. So there's an incentive all the way through the system. I get the knowledge, it's company specific, and at the same time will be shown to somebody in quote unquote with decision-making power inside the organization. A lot of times we have ideas, but they, I hate to say it, they stay here. Okay. They just stay here on the side. And my bucket is filled with ideas, but nobody ever does anything. And I get frustrated and I say, the company doesn't care. You've got to try and find that way to open up those ideas, going from lessons identified to lessons learned inside the organizations. Having said that, I also think, and we're seeing this in our MBA program, which I'm the director of, more and more individuals are coming to us to talk about their individual needs, what they want to learn, how they want to grow inside their organization, where they've got specific knowledge, but they're missing some of the broader side, but they also want to focus it inside their organization. So we've had over the last 5 or 6 years to figure out a semi-customization of an MBA program. There's not a generic one size fits all for somebody in the banking sector, in the manufacturing sector, and so on. Don't get me wrong, there's stuff that can be learned. There's always cross-fertilization of ideas, but you've also got to find those ways of semi-customizing what it is that people do. So I think that's where we're going to see a lot of changes and a lot of movement in the training and development area.
Thank you very much for mentioning the MBA program, because that's my next question. And I really want to hear your opinion on, do you think that MBA programs should be, let's say, included in the benefit programs that people offer within organizations? And also a totally different perspective on the MBA programs, and that's, how do you think the recession that we're experiencing on the global level can impact on the education and everything else in regards to people coming in from companies? Because it's not a usual thing, let's say, for bachelor students to proceed to an MBA program or to not have experience prior to enlisting. Right. So how do you think that we can prepare for this, and what's the impact gonna be?
Sure. So first of all, let me say, MBA programs are not for everybody. Okay. I don't think I run an MBA program. It's not for everybody. Okay. It's for individuals who are looking to grow and develop their business acumen inside their organization. Okay. So it's something that, should it be a part of benefits package? I think, my bosses will probably hate me saying this, I think it has to be something where you want give and take on both the organizational side and the individual side. Part of my experience has been that, if the organization pays the whole thing, okay, don't get me wrong, individuals come and they learn and they do what they're doing, but they're investing their time, but they actually haven't taken something out of their wallet. It's good to have a combination of the two. One of the best models I saw was a company that said, look, we're going to support you on the MBA journey. Okay. You pay for it. Okay. You commit to it. If you successfully complete, then the benefit comes to you. If you don't successfully complete, you've invested some of your own money. C'est la vie, that it's a matter of finding that balancing act. I think MBA programs in general have really had to evolve especially over the last 2 years, into this hybrid work environment, and in rethinking a lot of what we would consider to be sort of standard managerial practices. They're nothing standard anymore. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of growth that people can take from MBA programs. besides the MBA itself, I think what's really critical is learning from other people inside the classroom. As much knowledge as I may have, I don't have it all. Okay. And I think being able to apply the MBAs, the great thing about an MBA program is it's applied knowledge, it's applied development. And I think that's where you want people with experience, in my opinion, in an MBA classroom. You don't want somebody who is I call them a serial educator. They went from primary to elementary to high school to undergraduate, maybe another master's, and then MBA. It's great. They can bring knowledge, but they haven't had the experience. What's great is when you have, at least when I work with people, when they've got experience and they can call me out and they can say, hey, you know what, that crap that you were talking about, hygiene factors, doesn't work in my company because of this. And then we can debate it. We can discuss it because, sometimes, practice leads theory, and other times theories lead practice. We want to try and combine those two in the middle. So, MBA programs definitely evolving. And I think the structure of what people are looking for has also changed in terms of education. During recessions, what we actually find, or potential recessions, is that MBA registrations go up. It goes sort of counter-cyclical. When times are good, people keep running. When times are getting difficult or more challenging, they say, I need to know more. Okay, I need to be able to adapt more quickly to these nuances. So it sort of runs counter-cyclical. COVID was a different situation. It was very different because a lot of people said, I don't want online education. Okay, I don't want it. I want to be face-to-face. So, in our program, we run both face-to-face and online now, or what we call a blended version. So again, lots of changes, and there's a lot of interesting stuff that's happening in the MBA circle at the moment.
And I'm very happy that you mentioned that, because we also have some amazing news that we want to share for everyone that's following now and who will be watching this recorded on YouTube or any other platform that you find it. And that's the aspect of our conjoined collaboration on the HR Week conference that's happening in 2022, actually. I'm still in 2020, I'm sorry. So I wanted to share something about a special discount that we have prepared for you guys, but I also want Leslie to share more about the HR Week masterclasses that we have prepared. So would you like to share a bit of background on the speakers and on the topics that will be covered? And then I'm going to move on to the discount.
Sure, absolutely. So we're really proud to have partnered with HR Week in terms of bringing what we're calling master classes to the conference. Each day, depending on the particular theme, we've got a leading academic who's going to come in and talk about particular aspects applying HR, except with an academic foundation. So we have Dr. Giovanni Serafini, who's going to be talking about issues related to strategic human resource management and issues related to leadership and leadership development. Some of the foundations behind what he's going to be talking about are related to the fact that a lot of leadership training that we do doesn't actually get leveraged inside our organizations. And there's a gap in terms of the strategic application of what people are getting inside the organization. So he's going to talk about some issues related to that. I'm going to be talking in the area related to employer branding and some of the changes that are coming through the COVID scenario in terms of employer branding, how we can re-leverage ourselves in terms of the Great Resignation and the Great Rehire or hire as we go forward. My colleague from the University of Strasbourg, Stefano Bianucci, is going to be talking about the digital HR side of things. He's got a big background in artificial intelligence and the application of artificial intelligence and the digitalization of human resource management. Just as a parenthesis, the Pan-European Executive MBA that I direct is a collaboration between City College, the University of York Europe campus, and the University of Strasbourg. So it's a dual degree MBA program. So that's why we've got some people from our side, Stefano from the University of Strasbourg. We also have a gentleman from the University of York who's going to be with us. Philip is going to be talking about decision making inside organizations and the use of technology in the decision making process. And the last speaker that we have, so one for each of the 5 days, is Chris Liasides, my colleague here, who's going to be actually talking about human resource development, learning and development, and the application of gamification. I know gamification has been talked about a lot during the HR conferences, but there's some new areas of the gamification game that has changed through COVID. So he's going to be talking about a little bit about that and how we develop there. So we've got 5 what we believe are really relevant master classes that we're going to be presenting, one each day, because as academics, we don't want to bore the entire conference with hours and hours and hours of discussion. But we're really pleased and honored to be the academic partner, and we're going to be also integrating in some of the other activities as well. So that's what we're going to be bringing to HR Week at the 3rd week of November.
And thank you so much for that. We kept this under wraps and as a top secret for a while until everything was defined. And this is the first year that we have academic partnership as such. And what better way to actually promote this and truly publish it live than to actually have the opportunity to talk to you about all of this. I'm grateful to have all of these experts, both academically and professionally, joining us on HR Week, because the majority of them I know from my studies, and I know the value and the contribution that they bring to each and every program that you offer. And in that regard, I want to provide more information about a certain aspect that we have prepared for our HR community. And that's a special offer that we, as the partnership developed, thought of for everyone in the HR community willing to actually strive or actually striving towards obtaining more knowledge or an MBA degree. So what better way to get more knowledge than to apply to a dual MBA degree coming from the City College University of York Europe campus and the University of Strasbourg. So Leslie is the MBA Director and has more information to provide to you guys, but we're also going to be publishing a short text on the MBA degree and what is offered within the program for our community members. The most important aspect of it all is the fact that they were kind enough and generous enough to offer a 30% discount on the price of the MBA program for each and every HR community member willing to apply. So we're going to be publishing more info on this on our social media accounts and on our LinkedIn profile as well, but also on the HR World platform for all the community members to see. What's very important for me is to mention that this is only an introduction to all of the topics that will be covered in HR Week. So this is only to tease you guys to provide more info on the speakers and also promote a very important partnership that we now have established and the great offer that they are willing to provide to all the HR community members. So Leslie, I see that we have one question from the audience and then we can wrap all of this up. So guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the Q&A section since we're going to be wrapping this up. I see that Maja Vlahović asked that she actually came across a post where an HR recruiter said that coming to the HR recruitment department is usually by chance. Leslie, what's your opinion on this? Is it possible to come to the recruitment department by chance? And is that a way?
So I'm going to go under the assumption here that we're talking about somebody who comes into the HR department to do recruitment, okay, as opposed to somebody who just comes to the HR recruitment department by chance to apply for a job, okay? So yeah, so I guess, so first of all, does it occur? Yes, okay. Should it occur? Absolutely, positively, not a hope in hell should it ever occur. Okay. Now, why does it occur, or why might it occur? There's again, this is poor branding and marketing on the behalf of HR departments. There's a perception sometimes that it's an easy job. You just talk to people and decide whether they're the right people for the organization. If there's one job inside HR that is absolutely strategic, okay, it's that ultimate recruitment job. It's about being able to say, sorry, you seem like a very nice person with lots of experience, but you don't fit us. Why? Because I know what our culture is. I know what we need. I know that department. I know how it works and so on. And you're the wrong person. The cost of poor recruiting, okay, is tremendous. Okay. The leverage that you get from great recruiting is immeasurable. For me, the recruitment, or the person who recruits, he or she is truly the face of the organization to the potential candidate. And I've talked to a lot of people, and our program, we've graduated 3,500 executive MBA students. They say to me, I have gone to companies and left not wanting to go there because of the person I was talking to. They simply turned me off. Or I applied at a place, not really sure if I wanted to really, if it really fit me. But after talking to the person, I'm going full at it. I really want to work there. So that the front-facing person, he or she represents the company. They represent everybody from the CEO down to the lowest level people inside the organizations. And when I say the lowest people, I mean no disrespect. For me, the most important people are the people on the bottom. But that person represents everybody from highest to lowest and everywhere in between inside the organization. It does happen. It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be a place to put somebody just because there's nowhere else to put them in an organization. Unfortunately, I see that not just in the recruitment department, but in other parts of HR, where they say, well, they really don't fit here, but throw them into HR. Okay, put them into HR. It's not the place that you just want to dump people into. It's got to be strategic. It's got to be taken at the same with the same importance as putting somebody into the finance department or putting somebody into the marketing department, or it's the same level. Arguably, and again, I'm an HR guy, even more important, but I'm just going to leave that alone. I'll let the finance people kill me later.
Amazing. Thank you very much for including the finance people as well. I think that the whole discussion was like, I'm going to say it, and if the finance people, it's our fault. But no, it's very good that you provided your perspective on all of this, because this is a very ongoing and very important issue that we are experiencing, where people kind of do professional qualification and commit to a career change without truly understanding the business impact of it.
Absolutely.
So,
and let me just finish off by saying that's why in our MBA department, we actually have a specialization in human resource management. We truly believe that it's not just about general MBA training. It's about training and working with people who want to evolve in their particular professions. So we have a specialization in HR. We have one in logistics and supply chain management, healthcare management, marketing. finance, of course, and then the good old general MBA, the general management track. But for me, HR people need to speak the language of the business, and this is something we really pushed hard to get an HR track in, so that we can develop the HR profession in this region and across Europe. It's something that we have. I personally have a huge passion about. Our program has a huge passion about, and I think it's just worthwhile mentioning. HR, you got to speak the language of the business. You got to be able to speak from the boardroom to the lower levels and everything in between, and do all the other stuff we're supposed to do.
Absolutely, and thank you so much. The last thing that I want to mention, and then we can say goodbye to our audience, is the fact that I truly, as an individual and then as a member of HR World community, am supporting you guys into finding more information about the Pan-European Executive MBA program, and the fact that Leslie is going to be, let's say, especially if you choose the HR management track, he's going to be someone who's going to consistently and continuously stick by you in this truly significant path in life, honestly. And to wrap this up, I want to tell you all to feel free to connect to Leslie on LinkedIn if you want to find more information about his work and the MBA program. I will be providing more information on this as well in our next HR Chit Chat session. And I hopefully see you soon on HR Week 2022. Thank you, Leslie, so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And good luck to our HR world.
Thank you so much. See you soon. Bye. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.